Hi everyone, welcome to mini lesson 2 of module 5. In this mini lesson, I'm going to be very explicit about the criteria for the course project. I am going to clarify our use of collaborative teams throughout the course, and I am going to provide information that I hope will support your thinking about digital platforms. To get us started, I'm going to go through the criteria for the course project as pretty quickly, but there are some other documents that you can refer to, or you can always write us and we will try to fill in any gaps. So first of all, we want you to include all of these things that you see in this table, and we want you to identify them in your lesson plan. This means that you might just in parentheses simply write what you think that activity or that thing is doing, whatever it is. How is it related to the motivational framework? How is it related to growth mindset or the 4Cs? And one thing that you're doing, one activity or one strategy you're using might actually be a couple of different elements, which is absolutely fine. So just put it in there. We're not trying to make this more complicated. The real point here is that we're trying to be very intentional about building in what research tells us is important to support student learning. So here are the pieces. First of all, definitely begin with your standards. We're going to ask you to choose and unpack the standards. That will lead you to your learning target and the criteria that you will be using to determine if kids meet the expectations in those learning targets. Excuse me. As you know, you also need to build in some components of motivational framework and growth mindset. This doesn't mean all of the framework. This doesn't mean a whole full-on lesson with growth mindset. This means some aspect of the ideas within those models. The next is the 4Cs. This is also one of our foundational pieces. So once again, you might not, especially if you're doing a Unit 0 piece, be able to include all 4 of the Cs, but what are you doing in the lessons to promote communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity? We want you to be intentional and once again, identify the places where you believe those things will happen. The next one is assessment. This doesn't have to be a big assessment piece, and it might actually happen after the lesson, but we want you to, in some way, be thinking about how are you going to find out how the students are moving along towards meeting the expectations in your learning targets. It might be an exit ticket, a journal entry, a sticky note summary. There's so many different ways you could do it, but we want you to be thinking about that and account for it in your lesson plans. Also, differentiation. What did you build into the lesson to ensure all kids will have access to the learning? Did you offer a variety of tools so that they could choose what they need? Did you do it as small group work? Are you offering a teacher-led group? Are you giving choice? What is it that you're building in to promote differentiation so that that lesson reaches all the kids? And then the last one is your digital platforms. We want you to use 3 digital platforms across all of your lessons that you design, 3 or more lessons, 3 or more digital platforms. You can use more than one platform in a lesson. You do not need to use the same platform in every lesson. These are all choices you're going to make. We just want you to experiment with 3 different digital platforms, and we want you to create 3 different lessons. You can do this as a team, which is one way that we would be using collaboration. You can work as a team. Many of you identified people that you came to this course with and you want to create your lessons together. That is absolutely fine. We encourage that. Or you can do them individually. The second way that we're going to be using collaboration, however, is even if you have a team at your school that you're working with, or from another school, it doesn't matter. But if you have people you're working with, that's fantastic. But we also built in a little tiny bit of a collaboration, some collaborative projects or collaborative review so that you have a chance to refine your lessons. All of the team members, if you're working, let's say, as a 4th grade team and all of you are doing one lesson plan, you would each get feedback from other people that you could bring back to your team to work on together for refinement. So that's the point of the collaboration within the course. And then And then, as I said, we highly encourage you to work with someone else or a grade level team or whoever with a coach to design these lessons. Okay, so now let's think about one other piece, and that is we in the last mini lesson we talked about the 20-60-20, and what I want to do here is show you something called the 4 T's, which is a way to think about the 20-60-20 and if we're doing this in small remote lessons and not a larger face-to-face session. So if we're remote and you have just a limited time, like 30 minutes, you're still going to try to build in all aspects of 20-60-20. But here's where it might differ. Notice in the first 20, where it says you're doing the same things, working on your learning target, your vocabulary, and activating background knowledge, you might be doing some of that work asynchronously, meaning you might choose to make a little video like this, where you're introducing ideas to kids, having them do something with vocabulary, giving them some prompts to activate some background knowledge, but it's going to take place maybe before the 30-minute lesson starts. And so when you come to the 30-minute lesson online, you would just have to remind them of what they did. That will help you a lot with being able to do a good job of the first 20, but not run out of time. The work session, the 60, is called the try in the 4 T's. And that is where kids would be doing practice with you. And that might take place as a group if you're working with your whole class or part of your class, or maybe if you have your whole class, you divide them into breakout rooms, and you could visit each space and see what the kids are doing. But this is a time for kids to be engaged in practice and application of the content. And then, of course, the last 20, which we call closing in 20-60-20, is called the tell again in the 4 T's. And that's where students are summarizing and sharing how they feel about what they learned. I'm going to keep us moving here because we're already 7 minutes into the video, and I don't want to take too much more time. So this slide shows what digital platforms we've used so far and what are the other tools that we will explore in our work together. We've gotten a lot of questions about the digital platforms. So here are some just to get your head around it and to be thinking about, what will work for me? So we have used Google Classroom, Google Slides, Google Docs, and Google Forms. Those are all within your Google Drive. I'm sure that many of you have used these before. And if you think about it, we have used these quite a bit. I mean, our whole course is set up, our learning management system is the Google Classroom, and we have used slides over and over. We've also used Pear Deck, which is just an add-on for Google Slides. We've used Wixie, Flipgrid. I'm using Screencast-O-Matic right now to make this video, and we've used Snagit. You may have, or Snippet, you may have used the snipping tool. One of those was just to capture images that you used in a Google Doc, but you could also use it as a way to do video, and kids could use it for video. We're also going to explore GoFormative, Jamboard, Choiceboard, and the use of breakout rooms within as Google Meets within a remote learning situation. So all of these are ideas that you could use for your course project. So setting up your whole classroom or a section of your classroom, even homework, through the use of Google Classroom would be a digital platform that you could include in your lesson plans for your course project. So now this is really important, and the last thing we're going to talk about. How do you decide? How do you choose which digital platforms to use? Well, that depends upon your purpose and your learning targets. On this slide, what you'll find are just some beginning ideas for different tools that we think are really useful. We're going to be talking, as I said, about some of these in the future, like Jamboard and GoFormative. We haven't used them yet, but you know already how we've used Google Slides and Pear Deck, Wixie, and Google Forms. And the purpose for what you're doing, the purpose of your lesson, your learning target, those are the things that should guide you to these tools. We, once again, have included here some ideas around the primary purpose, but there could be others, and we invite you just to be creative. and to actually match up your purpose for your lesson, your learning targets with your digital platforms. That is the key to being really successful in using digital platforms for learning as a tool for learning. Okay, thank you so much. I hope that you have more information now about the project, about the use of our collaborative teams, and that you have some different ways of framing your thinking about the digital platforms.